I don't have quite a cold open planned as much as a writing question.
Okay, I do that sometimes.
Yeah, you're a writer, Jack, right?
Yes, I also stare at a screen like Taika Waititi for 8 hours.
Man,
and then...
the dude just gets it, right?
Yeah. Have you written a Star Wars? Kind of.
Oh my God. So you've based characters on yourself, right?
Yeah, I'd say here and there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every writer does that to some extent or another, right?
Yeah, it's the best form of self-abuse.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of fair.
Yeah.
I've had this long-running idea in the back of my head for a story that I have no idea if I'll ever do, partially because I don't know how to really pull it off very well, and partially because it feels extremely masturbatory.
Right.
Where it is just different versions of me running into each other and just getting just more and more frustrated with each past version of myself they encounter.
Ooh, okay.
And there being just this cycle of frustration and hatred amongst all of them.
You haven't heard of a movie or a show called Loki, have you?
Oh, piss. Aw, dang. They did. Disney beat me to it, huh?
Yep. Disney beat you to it. The mouse got you again.
Oh, God damn it. One of these days, mouse!
But the important question is, would you have sex with a female version of yourself?
Oh, God. I've already invoked the word masturbatory.
She'd be a blonde. If we're
That doesn't make that much of a difference. Just, yeah. I don't know.
I'm trying to imagine you as a blonde, and it's difficult because it's just you.
I actually don't like it.
I've seen you in a blonde wig, so
you have seen me in a blonde wig. This is very true.
Not quite doing it for me.
Yeah, honestly, me neither.
Yeah,
no.
All right, so no one wants to fuck the female version of you, huh?
Why we didn't? Hey,
no one, not a single person.
I feel sorry for her. That's awful.
I'm fascinated to see how this ties in.
Well, I mean, the reason I asked. Well, I guess I should say first, welcome to DeRazzled, the podcast where we take award-winning worst films and fix them, except on our second unit episodes. Welcome to the second unit, where today we are delving into our brand new series, Development Hell. So the reason I asked this weird writing question is because of the subject matter that we're delving into here today. The movie that did not come to pass that we're talking about is The Amory Wars.
I'm sorry, I don't know who I'm talking to because you didn't introduce us. Who are you again?
Oh, right. That's a part of hosting, right. Yeah, I'm Joe Nealis. I'll be your host for this one. And with me, as always, is also host Jack Culbertson.
Hi.
It's weird to say that backwards.
Yeah.
But
you did it.
But I did it, and here we are. So, yeah, so we're covering the Amory Wars here today, which is a comic book series based off a variety of the albums that have been released by the band Coheed Cambria. So the reason I asked this is because the main character of the first 4 albums of this story, written by Claudio Sanchez, is named Claudio.
So is he the Coheed or the Cambria?
Neither. Those are Claudio's parents. We'll delve a little bit more into the specifics of the story.
If you've never heard of the Amory Wars or Coheed Cambria, don't worry. You can take a seat right beside me. While I've been doing my bit of research for this, which is just listening to the albums and quote unquote reading the lyrics, I've been kind of adding in little bits of my own music here and there, a little bit of Tijuana, Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass, a little bit of Swingle Singers, just something to really kind of offset the sad boy.
There was a lot of sad boy in there. So if you've never listened to Coheed Cambria, they're a band from Nyack, New York. Started in the early 2000s, released their first studio album in 2002, and have been running strong since. All of the albums that Coheed Cambria have released follow this story that is overarchingly known as the Amory Wars, with the exception of one album. There's one of their 10 albums that they've released that is just music. It has nothing to do with anything else.
A holiday special.
Kinda.
Like the Christmas. Oh, really?
Okay. Well, think of it more as a Father's Day special, because it was mostly inspired by the birth of Claudio's son, Atlas. So that is, yeah, he named his kid Atlas.
Okay.
He's a fucking nerd. It's just...
Trying to think if Atlas ever did anything really terrible in mythology, but I don't think so.
I don't know. Probably. It's mythology.
Right, yeah.
They hurled the Earth into a black hole or some shit. I don't know.
Nice. Thanks, Atlas.
Completely making that up. So the reason that we're covering this on this show, which, that might seem a little bit weird that we're covering a bunch of random prog metal albums and some comic books, but this was announced to be adapted into a feature-length film at San Diego Comic-Con in 2012. And it was announced that it was going to be produced by Mark Wahlberg and Leverage Management.
Right.
Yeah.
When I think of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, I think of
I think
sweet emo band.
I think post-hardcore emo prog metal
right.
Nonsense.
And their fancy burger place.
We'll talk about the burger place a little bit.
Oh, God.
A very little bit. The initial reports were that everyone involved in the project at the announcement, including Mark Wahlberg himself, was like really excited about the story and like really into it and really looking forward to making this story happen. But then nothing did. There was just silence and nothing for a long, long time until Wahlberg's rights to the property lapsed.
Okay.
Claudio Sanchez announced in 2019 that the deal that they had expired and all of the rights had reverted back to him.
Okay, well, at least it's not tied up somewhere.
Right, yeah, that is the nice thing, and we'll touch a little bit more on that later. But first, I want to ask, had you had any prior experience or exposure to this band before this little excursion here?
The only thing I know about the Coheeds and Cambrias is when I was standing in line to get my iCard at IUP, the very first photo, there's a poster for them to play at, I guess, Fisher?
No, they played the Ohio Room. I was at that show.
I was like, I should go see them because I'm a college student and it'll be fun. I didn't.
It was a fun show. I have a little bit of a salty memory about that show, specifically because I went with my first girlfriend, and when the main support for that tour, the Blood Brothers, came out to play, they are like an extreme post-hardcore, like loud, screechy, screamy band, and my little freshly 19-year-old emo heart was just like, oh my god, this is great, I'm gonna love this, and she got a migraine, so so we went outside, and she did not have a good time from that. She stuck it out, and we still listened to Coheed, but
was she familiar with Coheed and Cambria before that?
Mostly from me, but yes.
Okay.
There was also a horrible review of that show written up in the campus newspaper, The Pen.
That's what it was. I was like, what was that called?
Which is really the reason I was salty about the whole experience, is because they had all these glowing things to say about the Blood Brothers, which, great, they're an amazing hardcore band if you're into that thing, which, my experience was unfortunately not getting to enjoy them. And they wrote Coheed off as claiming that all of their songs sounded like closers. Which is a weird thing to say in just a bad read on like the
You want to go beat up a bunch of like journalist majors?
I actually for a minute turned into like an 80-year-old man and was I had a draft of a letter to the editor where I was going to be complaining about that, and I thankfully did not send it because I should not have been that person at 19.
No.
It's the first time I've mentioned that in years. So I've known about this band forever. When they released the music video for A Favor House Atlantic, which is like the big single off of their second record, I was in immediately. Because first off, the video's goofy as hell. It's just like this. It has no tie into any of the story or anything like that. Because at that point of the band, it was like, no one's going to get it. No one's going to understand this. We're just going to have fun as musicians.
Can I pause you for one moment?
Yes.
I want you to pretend from this moment on that I literally was at a luau party listening to like Les Baxter with like a docktail, and I stepped into a wormhole, landed in 2022. It was a bad trip. And you're like, hey, here's some music that'll blow your mind. And I'm like, you're not wrong. So that is my base knowledge for what we're about to do, which is nothing other than I know their album cover has a big Roman numeral 4 on it.
One of them.
And I think they have a lot of hair.
Claudio in particular has a lot of hair. Okay. He actually tried to trick everybody into thinking he cut his hair back in 2016, I think it was. Might have been sooner than that, or earlier than that. I forget exactly. But he had been wearing a ball cap and there was nothing coming out the back of him. And people were like, no, what happened to your mane? Like, people were worried it was a Samson situation.
Oh, no.
And he was going to lose all of his power. But then they went on tour, and like the very first show, he's a very energetic performer. So the hat just flew off and all his hair comes springing out and people lost their fucking minds.
Fantastic reveal. So I know nothing about music beyond 1967.
If you know nothing about music since 1967, man, this band's going to be completely inaccessible to you.
See, now you get it. Now you know where I am with this music.
Oh man, I guess I shouldn't entirely say that. They do take some classic rock influence in some of their songs, particularly as you get later on into their material. There is, in particular, at the very end of their third record, a kind of country-ish riff on a Led Zeppelin tune.
Huh.
Yeah, I forget the name of the Zeppelin tune, but it's just like a bonus track hidden at the very end of the record.
If you had to do it with your mouth right now, could you?
No, because copyright.
Well, one, improv rules. So yes, you bet, and copyright rules.
Oh, God damn it.
We cut out there for a second. We missed it.
Yeah, man, it was really good.
It was really good.
Man,
I knew the exact Zeppelin song you're talking about.
I didn't know I could do that. Mm-hmm. It was, oh man, did anyone hear that? Anyone? No? Okay, I'm sorry. How much of them did you get a chance to really listen to before we jumped in here?
So you know that scene in Ghostbusters where I think it's Ray is talking to Venkman and he's like, "You never did the homework, did you?" It's not quite that bad. Because I did listen to the first two-ish, and we did do the playlist, which is available now on Spotify.
Yes. If you look up Cambria Heat and the Tijuana Brass DeRazzled presents Cambria Heat and the Tijuana Brass, you can see this playlist, which is largely a bunch of my favorite Coheed songs from all of their records, and then interspersed intermissions of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Just to kind of help it go down a little smoother.
If it's not entirely your thing, but if you're still interested to check it out.
So I did listen to some of the playlists, so that is to say maybe about 40 minutes worth?
Okay. All right, yeah. So you probably got into third album territory.
Yes.
Yeah. Which we'll talk a little bit more about some of the structure and the number of albums and the stories and how things tie together a little bit more. In fact, right now we're going to talk a little bit about that regarding the comic series at the very least and how that ties in. So what the fuck is this story about? Because just listening to the records, you're really at a loss for like how some of this stuff ties in, because sometimes dialogue is used as lyrics, sometimes feelings and emotions about things are used as lyrics, sometimes there aren't lyrics. Depends on the thing. So the short version is that Claudio Sanchez made himself into the hero of a bizarre sci-fi epic where his secretly robot parents were tricked into killing his siblings by a space wizard dictator guy, but he gets away because of mysterious powers. After fleeing home, he comes under the protection of a sexy blue fallen angel and learns he's some kind of space messiah. Despite palling around with an angel, his supernatural robot uncle, and his weird child robots, and eventually a psycho killer who's in love with his gun, Claudio can't take down the wizard fascist and has an existential crisis in which it's revealed that God is a whiny writer who A, is pissed at his ex who might have cheated on him with a friend, and B, plagued by hallucinations of a demonic 10-speed bicycle. Claudio has actually been God's angsty self-insert character, and ultimately he kills everyone.
Yes, that's what I got out of the albums as well.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, wow, way to go. First pass. Yeah. Got it in one.
I was reading the lyrics and I still was like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, that's a big issue with trying to get into the meat of this story with just the music. The comics are a really helpful way to elucidate a lot of that, and like there are clear usages of lines from the songs that help like make those connections for you. Problem is, particularly whenever you're trying to get started with the first series, it's out of print.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
It really doesn't help. Like I actually tried ordering a copy of the like the Ultimate Edition compendium of all 10 issues for the first album, Second Stage Turbine Blade, and that I'm
sorry, the
look on your face
it sounds like you're making up words.
Dude, don't even get me started. Just so Half Price Books is not a great place to buy comics from online. I love the place otherwise, but like if you're trying to buy something specific, don't try to do it from the website because they don't know what they have in terms of comics. So like they had the cover up of the compendium that I thought I was getting, and then it turned out it was actually the trade paperback of the first half of Second Stage Turbine Blade.
Yeah.
So it was only the first 5 issues. It doesn't have the whole thing, but thankfully they're being very nice and understanding about the fact that they really messed the listing up, and they'll be getting a refund.
Thanks, Half Price Books.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Did I hear you say that God wants to ride his bike? He likes to ride his bicycle. He wants to ride his bike. Was that God?
That was God. Yeah. Okay. God it's more his bike likes to ride him about killing off the representation of his ex.
That is not the Queen song I was hoping it would be.
No. It would be one hell of a backwards listening to get that out of the Queen song.
So if you play record backwards,
if you play Bicycle Race backwards and take a lot of acid, this sounds almost like an MK Ultra test of some sort.
You know what? Yeah, the entire pitch you gave me for this episode sounds like an MK Ultra.
Actually, you know what? Might have been.
Yeah, I've duped again.
Damn. We're going to dig a little bit more directly into what could have went wrong with this, like why this never actually came to pass as a film.
Sure.
But I think first let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll come back fresh and jump on in here. All right, and welcome back. Thank you for sticking around with us here. So again, we are talking about the Coheed Cambria albums and the story of the Amory Wars that spans them. So, Jack, why, having heard what you've heard so far, why do you think a movie didn't actually come out of this when it was supposed to?
Because it didn't come out as an animated film in the late 70s.
That's
directed by Ralph Bakshi.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Partial live action.
I really want the Bakshi version of this.
Yeah.
Holy
He's not doing anything.
Is he still alive?
He is.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. He just can't get funding for
anything.
anything.
Send a fucking letter to Claudio Sanchez.
I'll take Bakshi, you can take Claudio Sanchez.
Perfect. We can get them in a room together.
It'll be awful, but yeah, no. Let's do it.
I don't know a whole lot about Bakshi as a person, so I'm not sure if
he's a curmudgeon. He's your kind of like run-of-the-mill curmudgeon.
Yeah, see, Claudio's not. He's introverted, but he's like the sweetest person on earth.
It's going to be a fascinating collaboration. More seriously, I think that it would be impossible to do without lots of money and green screen.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So aside from the money and the green screen, which, again, this is going to have Mark Wahlberg backing, so money could have very well been there. Or at least I'm willing to believe it was possible for it to be there. But we'll touch on Wahlberg a little bit more specifically later on. For right now, I want to focus on how I think, story-wise, there are several reasons that this is just flat-out hard to adapt. So, first off, it's a very personal story. Even though it's about space wizards and weird space messiahs and angry misogynist god and so on and so forth, a lot of it, Sanchez has specifically said in interviews, has been a veil for him to talk about shit in his real life that he's experienced and use songwriting as like the way to do that, because he's not always the best at communicating with people as an introvert, but he's an incredibly skilled songwriter. So that
introverted musicians got it.
Yeah, precisely. So he's so thoroughly wrapped up in this. I mean, not just because he made himself the protagonist, right, and thus also sideways made himself God. It would be difficult to really get somebody to like collaborate with him to like make something solid out of this, because he's so mired in the material personally. There is precedent for people collaborating with him on this, particularly through the comics.
Yeah, I meant to ask, is he writing this entirely by himself, or does he have a co-writer?
So it's changed from part of the story to part of the story. Okay. So he had, it was just him for Second Stage Turbine Blade. It was him, and
also interested to know who the artist is.
There's been a few different artists. The current one that's still running with the series is Rags Morales.
Oh, nice. He did a run on Action Comics with Grant Morrison.
Oh, nice.
And a bunch of other stuff. That's just the one I know.
That's appropriate. A lot of people compare the third album Twist that takes place in this as being kind of Grant Morrison-esque. So
you know, yeah, Which is another artist who has not been able to be adapted because all this shit sounds like it should be a 70s animated backstreet film.
Man, it's wild.
Yeah.
Peter David is the other writer that helped out with In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. And then when they got to the third album, which I'm finally going to say the full title of, if you don't already know, is Good Apollo, I Am Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. That's the entire title of that album.
Do you know how confusing it was to look at your track listings for the Spotify playlist?
Yeah.
And then try to figure out, like,
which colon do you have to start reading from for the song titles?
What? How am I looking? I want to say Peter David famously wrote the Hulk and X Factor.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a pretty big comic book writer.
Very nice.
I think. No. Yeah, definitely the Hulk and X Factor though.
I think most people consider the story in Keeping Secrets to be one of the more like straightforward and accessible parts of the story.
That's the one he wrote?
That's the one that
Or
Peter
co-wrote?
David was co-wrote.
Okay.
But I think even just from the music, it's a little bit you're able to pick bits and pieces of that story out a little bit easier. At least I felt that way. But for Good Apollo Volume 1, Claudio's wife Chandra Eckert co-wrote with him, and she has been mired in this world with him for a very long time at this point, to where she has helped write a lot of supplementary material and help flesh out some more details within the story to make particularly Good Apollo 1 more understandable, because Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, you didn't get the whole plot from that title?
No, not at all.
Neither.
When that album came out, it was actually released with a trade paperback of a full graphic novel that was supposed to cover the entirety of the story of that album, and it was damn near indecipherable. Like, I remember I pored over that thing for like a year and a half and could not figure it out.
With the graphic novel that came with it.
Yes.
I love that in a graphic novel where it's just like
deeply impenetrable.
I need to have a doctorate to be able to understand what I'm reading.
Amazing, unique art style behind it. It was like ethereal and painterly in a number of ways. Cool. It was really cool, but like, man, it did not feel like it elucidated a goddamn thing.
You've made it more confusing, actually.
Yeah. It genuinely felt that way, but I'm hoping to get my hands on the new graphic novel, like the actual official Amory Wars version of it. Now that's, I think there's a full
and that's also out of print
of that. No, that one should not be out of print. That's much more recent. Much like the Venture Brothers releasing seasons, there have been some wide gaps between releases in these comics, which raises part of the problem of this story is that the fourth album and the climax of Claudio's story hasn't been put to print yet. That's like the next comic project that they have lined up right now is to finally start that. They are working on it. But they just have so many other things that they're doing. Like, they just released a new album as of this recording 3 days ago. So like
the acapella jazz album.
Yes, exactly. We'll talk a little bit more about that album and like what's coming down the pike for Coheed closer to the end of the show. But for right now, I want to get back into like why I don't think this has actually managed to happen yet. And one of the biggest reasons, I think, is because the story is extremely dense, if not outright convoluted. So to exemplify that, I'm going to cover some key concepts that you need to know just for a base level understanding of this, and go through a quick synopsis of the second stage Turbine Blade, as that would likely be the material for the first film.
Great. You have a PowerPoint?
Kind of. Okay, so the key concepts you need to know about are, first, the setting. This takes place in a cluster of 78 planets in a sector of space known as Heaven's Fence. It's 78 planets arranged in a triangle formation surrounded by 7 stars, known as the Stars of Sirius, that help power the strange energy source that holds them all together, which is known as the Keywork.
Yeah, I'm with you so far.
Okay. So Keywork, powered by stars, holds planets in shape.
Yes.
The beings of Heaven's Fence, created by God, we'll put a pin in God for a minute, are the humans, or man, who populate the planets. Mm-hmm. The mages, who rule over the humans, are supposed to be benevolent, loving, leaders amongst the humans of these different sectors of these planets. So they control sectors of the Keywork.
So not God level, but either like demigod or Titan type.
something along those lines. Yeah, they're not like, they definitely look alien and other compared to humans, but they're not like gargantuan. They're not like Marvel Celestials or anything like that. So there's one mage to rule over each of the 12 sectors of Heaven's Fence, and they ended up in a war amongst themselves. One mage named Wilhelm Ryan took over the territories of two of the other mages adjacent to his, killed them off, and declared himself a supreme tri-mage, now controlling three territories. The other mages demanded that he stand down and remove his forces, and he responded by just straight up killing the guy that directly talked to him, and then turning the other mages into these mindless killing machines known as Onstantine priests.
Okay, I'm still mostly with you.
Okay. The other beings are known as the Prize, and they are these celestial angelic beings. They're very humanoid in appearance, but they're basically just a bunch of like blue ladies with wings.
Ah, yes, the blue ladies.
The blue ladies,
right.
Yes. They are the protectors of Heaven's Fence. They live within the star in the very middle of Heaven's Fence, Star 4. They are also charged with interpreting God's riddle. God left some sort of riddle behind that was supposed to act as a prophecy. This is the riddle. If man should decide to dabble in my affairs, then Guardian must intervene. But should I come forth to change the face of man, with you there to challenge me, then I shall return with the stars to destroy all I have made. Whether man or I present that danger will not be told in the coming. So basically, if shit goes awry, the Prize have to figure out, is this God or is this some guy with a death ray? And then if it's a guy with a death ray, they take him out. If it's God, they kind of have to let it happen.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Moving on from them, there come to be developed these beings known as iRobots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let that sink in, because the first time I ever read that, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Because I had at least heard of Asimov a little bit.
Right, I was like...
Yeah, not quite like Asimov. So IRO in this case is an acronym which stands for Interceptive Recon Operative. So this is where the Coheed and the Cambria come into Coheed and Cambria.
They're robots?
They're robots. So they're created...
You should have started with that.
Well, I had to build up some... I had to set some groundwork for why they are robots and what they were made for.
And who made the robot?
The robot, thank you for asking. Yeah, the robots were made by Dr. Lenin Hohenberger, specifically so that he could get revenge on Wilhelm Ryan and oust him and take him down from power. Because now that he has control of the entire keywork and has unleashed these mindless killing machines on his enemies.
And he is a tri-mage?
He's Supreme Tri-Mage.
Also now in control of the power station.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, yes. You're getting it. You're getting it.
Okay.
Okay. So Hohenberger created these iRobots to form a force that would stop what he considered terrorist attacks carried out by Ryan, and to eventually kill him and end his reign. So he created Coheed, who is known as the Beast. He's just straight up violent. He's a monster. He's a destructive force to be reckoned with.
Didn't I hear you say that Coheed and Cambria were based off of his parents?
I would not say they're like a direct corollary for Claudio Sanchez's actual parents.
Okay.
An important thing to note, the Claudio in the story is Claudio Kilgannon, not Claudio Sanchez specifically. They share a first name. There's a little superficial amount of separation there.
Couldn't possibly be referring to himself.
No! Are you kidding me?
I want you to keep in mind the entire time you're describing this that I am a time traveler from 1967, so I'm imagining this entire story with the same kind of mechanics as the original Star Trek.
I can't even tell. Yes. There we go. I was going to say, like, man, I can't even go to Star Wars, but yes, Star Trek. There we go.
So all of the robot people are... I think what's the captain that can only talk and he's in like a wheelchair box?
Oh my god. No, they're not like that.
Yeah, it's a whole band of those guys. I love it. I'm in.
Excellent. So he creates Coheed, who is a pure destructive force. He creates Cambria, who is meant to quell him and stop him if need be. If need be, actually kill him if he goes completely out of control. and Jesse, who is basically a direct copy of Hohenberger and meant to carry on in his stead should something go wrong. Naturally, something goes wrong, and Hohenberger's plot is found out. Wilhelm Ryan labels him a terrorist and an enemy of the state, and he's executed. So before he's caught, he wipes Coheed and Cambria's memories and sends them off to live like a life as normal people. Now, there are two other details to keep in mind here regarding that detail in particular. So Coheed, as a massive destructive force, is also infected with a virus known as the Monstar. Hohenberger put this in here as basically like a gelatinous cube surrounding his heart.
Gross.
Yeah. And if it were to be triggered, it would burn away and cause him to directly siphon the energy of the keywork to cause utter destruction. And that is the situation under which Cambria would need to off him and stop him. Right. But he had made another iRobot named Josephine, who was a little wee baby at the time. Mm-hmm. She is considered to be Coheed and Cambria's eldest daughter, and she was developed specifically to be a cure to the Monstar virus when she hit a certain age.
Okay.
You with me?
Sure.
Okay. So then we can actually now get into the real story.
Fuck you.
Okay, so actual synopsis of the second stage turbine blade. Coheed and Cambria live a quiet, normal life with their 4 children on the planet Hetricus. Wilhelm Ryan's General Mayo Deftenwolf, actual name, confronts Coheed to remind him of his true past and his relationship with Hohenberger and Jesse and what they were and what he and Cambria were actually meant to do. To tell him about the Monstar virus and to warn him that the Monstar has mutated into the Sinstar virus in his children and will cause a calamity when their oldest child reaches the age of 23, which Josephine is about to. This is complete bullshit. Mayo's absolutely lying to him. This is not going to happen. But Coheed has no reason to disbelieve this.
You ever read the short story Young Goodman Brown?
Yes.
By Nathaniel Hawthorne.
I believe it is Hawthorne.
I remember reading it in class, and I'm like, sweet, this dude just like fucked off to the woods, saw some weird shit, and it kind of freaked him out. And then we spent like a week and a half dissecting it, and I'm like, I didn't read any. Dude just saw some weird shit in the woods. It's pretty sweet. I don't know how this is like.
I like that reading so much more than anything Nathaniel Hawthorne actually like wanted anyone to get out of it.
No, it was pretty. I'm kind of like, well, I don't know what you're freaking out about, bro. It's probably pretty cool shit.
That sounds pretty great. Can I get the shrooms you had?
If you didn't like the party, go home.
Amazing.
But
where were you in my fucking literature classes in undergrad?
My English teacher was like, no, it's definitely about all these other things. And I feel like that would be my current read of the Coheed and Cambria albums, where I listen to like the first couple, and I'm like, seems like this guy is real sad.
There is some sadness, and we're about to get to that.
And you're like, actually, it's about space politics and robot daddies.
Yes, it's space politics, space wizards, and fascist wizards and robot daddies. But Mayo, which again, not the sandwich spread, actual name, tells Coheed that he can be cured on a different planet, on Paris, Earth, but only if he agrees to kill his children to save Heaven's Fence. And he provides him with 4 vials of poison with which to do this. Cambria, who has, at this point in the story, I believe just had like a run-in with like a weird, like derelict guy in a parking lot, and he happened to recite back to her part of God's riddle.
That's
and,
like Dave. Dave's like that.
Yeah. Dave running around shouting all this shit about whether God's violent or not, and just. Yeah.
He's harmless.
He's harmless. He's fine. But it triggers her memory a little bit, and she starts to recover some of her powers, which were specifically psychic abilities and telekinesis. So she ends up accidentally scrying this whole situation, and before Coheed can even talk to her about it, she knows everything that Mayo's told him. So she's aware of the situation and doesn't see a way out of it. So Coheed goes upstairs and poisons their youngest children, Maria and Matthew, and spends their last moments of life playing with them and trying to, accept the fact that they're about to die. And this is where some of the sadness and horrible things come in.
Not like what I imagined when you said playing with them, as in like a cat playing with a mouse before it.
No.
But like,
no, like a father plays with his children, you see.
Yes, that's less disturbing.
So while this is happening, their oldest daughter Josephine and her fiance Patrick are driving about, and they're on their way out to Jersey City. I will say one of the dumbest things about this story is the fact that there's a Jersey City on this non-Earth planet, but there is also a planet that has Earth in its name.
That part honestly was probably the most confusing thing so far.
Yeah, because I noticed you did like a what when I said Paris Earth.
Yeah. I was just gonna like let it roll, but then you brought up Jersey City.
And I brought up Jersey City. Yes, that's why I'm addressing it now. So one of the big like real world things that like was formative for the start of this band was a trip that they took to Paris before they actually were Coheed and Cambria.
Right.
Like the majority of the people who started Coheed and Cambria had been in other bands with each other previously. The one that lasted the longest and like came right into the Coheed years was one called Shaboody.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just love watching your expressions when I say these things to you. It's wonderful. So the idea is that Patrick is driving Josephine out here because he wants to propose. They are not officially affianced just yet. But he wants to propose out here, and when he's about to, they get attacked by the Jersey City Devils, a group of bikers and ne'er-do-wells and gang members who just kick the ever-living shit out of Patrick and assault Josephine.
This makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So they end up eventually returning home. Josephine tries to recount what they just went through, but ends up just bawling and crying, and Coheed tells her to come here. And so he's going to soothe her. But the truth of the matter is that he had such a hard time watching the youngest die via poison that he's going to bash her head in with a hammer to just make it faster.
Much easier.
Yeah. So Patrick watches this happen and goes, "Holy fuck!" and just runs. Just gets the fuck out of there. Shortly thereafter, Wilhelm Ryan's Red Army arrive to detain Coheed and Cambria and prepare to burn the house down to destroy the evidence. They are not aware that they have one kid left.
That's Patrick.
No, Patrick. No, Patrick's just a loose end right now.
All right, see Patrick.
No, Claudio. Claudio is the
Right.
other. Is the other.
Claudio the hair. Got it.
Yeah. Well, he at this point the fictional Claudio is just kind of a scrawny, short-haired, like artsy, angry nerd with a girlfriend.
He hasn't gotten his like hair of strength.
No, he has not got hair strength. This Claudio actually never gets the hair strength of real Claudio.
Bummer.
Yeah,
That's why the movie didn't get made.
He gets a little Jesus-y, like in his look. Like he gets longer hair and a big old beard. And as we're about to see, like some other shit that is useful. But before we get to that, there are a couple of these Red Army guys that start trying to burn the house down. But as they're in the process of that, an Constantine priest arrives and just kills them because it was on its way to take Patrick out because Ryan is aware of the fact that Claudio's still out there somewhere and hasn't been killed, and also Patrick is around and is a loose end.
Yeah, fuck Patrick.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Patrick.
Yeah, he had a pretty rough day.
He's had a rough day. And we'll get into more of why later. So Claudio is out with his girlfriend, Nuo Icken, who they've been together for a couple of years. They are each other's world for the most part. They're in high school and in love. And Claudio realizes that he's missed his curfew by like a lot, and decides to take off for the night, and he rushes home to only, find some dead soldiers and his barely clinging to life sister in the kitchen. And also a bunch of gas spilled everywhere. Like you do. So he runs to Josephine, and by his touch, she regains consciousness for a moment and starts to try to tell him what happened. But at that point, the priest comes back to try and off Claudio, at which point he turns intangible and ends up kitty priding himself through a wall and getting away.
What's the problem with this priest? Like, why is he having, what's his
Well, the priest is, remember, the priests are mindless, vicious killing machines. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, it's not like Father Jacob from down the street has come by and decided to knife your family.
It's not exactly what I. No, that's exactly what I was thinking when you described it.
Yeah, this is more like a you mix a Cenobite with a what the hell, with a xenomorph, and you give it Gene Simmons' tongue.
Oh,
no, sorry, Venom's tongue.
So much overkill.
If Gene Simmons was Venom, you give him that tongue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah, they're horrifying. So it becomes clear he has some sort of bizarre powers, and he uses them to get himself the fuck out of that situation. And Josephine just calls out to say, "You'll make it. You'll make it if you believe." And then she dies. So then
end of issue 1.
This is a couple issues at this point. So he then goes and mopes around outside of Nuo's house, watching her and her dog Apollo sleep like an invisible creep. And then he goes back to leave a note at his house after he's sure that the priest has gone. And so he leaves Nuo this note, which is basically a breakup note, but he hides like other details about like where he's about like what he's actually doing, which is, you know, just fucking off the planet to be safe and try and protect her from whatever the hell that was. So he leaves the note, and then we eventually see that the priest has gone off to go after Patrick, which eventually succeeds in killing Patrick's dumbass. So no more Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick.
Claudio, while he's wandering around, takes a gun from a storefront display before stowing away on a trash ship. And during the ride, he writes his parents a letter and contemplates suicide before deciding to save that bullet for somebody else. I think the line in the song is from the song Neverender, which is also the name of the gun, if I'm not mistaken, is point your gun in another direction.
Of course, that's exactly what I got from that lyric, was that.
Meanwhile, on Dil Ariath 9, Wilhelm Ryan's greatest challenger, a mage named Mariah Antillaria, who was supposedly born of Immaculate Conception, rallies resistance forces. Remember, all of the mages were turned into Constantine priests if they weren't killed. So how Mariah? No one knows. So she and Jesse, the other Irabut that we know of, who is supposed to be basically Coheed's brother and thus Claudio's uncle,
right,
has come back to back her cause. And there they learn of Coheed and Cambria's capture. They try and go to rescue them and prevent Ryan from using them. Because he wants to create some havoc using Coheed and Cambria.
Sir, I'm just waiting for the bus. Just waiting for the 91 to come.
Sir, this is a Wendy's. Meanwhile, in space on the Gloria Valvesa, Coheed and Cambria are held captive on a ship en route to Paris, Earth, where they think Coheed will be cured, but really they're being duped. The trauma of their situation unlocks their memories, revealing the truth that Josephine was the Monstar cure and that they've been duped. Coheed, the biggest dupe, rages as blades emerge from his arm, and he frees himself and Cambria so that they can kill everyone and take over the ship. Coheed's arm eventually becomes a gun, for reasons, but the armor worn by the Admiral on the ship, Admiral Crom, siphons his energy and prevents him from ending the ship's journey. Jesse arrives aboard his ship, the Grail Arbor, to try and stop the Gloria, but fails. Mariah goes to Paris, Earth to prepare for battle, where she is joined by the Prize, who have been made aware of this whole situation. Meanwhile, on Hetricus, Ambelina, a prize who has fallen and whose wings have been burned away, arrives to try to find Claudio, but instead finds Nuo reading his letter and who is about to be killed by a priest. Through the letter and Nuo, Ambelina picks up on where Claudio went and goes to try to find him. Nuo fucks off with her dog, I guess. Meanwhile, on Paris, Earth, Coheed and Cambria land, and Defton Wolf releases a massive number of dragonflies before Mariah's forces can stop him. The dragonflies contain a toxin that triggers the Monstar. Coheed is stung, and as his eyes meet Cambria's, he transforms to become the Monstar. Cambria also transforms into what is known as the White Ruineer, meant to destroy the Monstar.
What album are we on?
Still the same album.
God
this is all this is all Second Stage Turbine Blade. This is all to make my fucking point. Meanwhile, on the same damn planet, Mariah's forces are joined by the Prize and are getting their asses handed to them by the Red Army. Paranoia, the leader of the Prize, I think, is killed. Coheed does exactly what he's designed to do and saps all of the energy out of Star 7, which holds Sector 12 to the keywork, causing all of those planets to fly off into space. He dies as Cambria does her job. The Prize, fighting alongside Mariah, sacrifice themselves to sustain the energy of the keywork for the remaining 69 planets.
Noise.
Thank you. Mayo kills Mariah and eventually, later in the story, presents her head in a box to Wilhelm Ryan. Cambria sacrifices herself to restore the energy to Star 7, allowing the 9 lost planets to reestablish an orbit. And oh my god, it's our solar system!
Oh.
Oh. Also, Paris Earth becomes Silent Earth for reasons. Meanwhile, on Shiloh's 10... We're almost done, I swear to God. Claudio lands and discovers a Red Army prison camp where the prisoners are sacrificed to the keywork because the keywork is powered by the souls of the dead.
Yeah, it's how that works.
The prisoners are also called stars. Lol. Claudio befriends a star named Cecil, who tells him about the camp and its whole deal, as well as a guy who once tried to escape the camp but failed, known as the Hearshot Kid. Claudio decides to try and help the stars, but Cecil dissuades him because he's making a scene. Turns out Claudio was tailed by an Constantine priest the entire time, and that eventually jumps out and tries to kill him. Claudio manages to save Cecil, and the Red Army that are there freak out and kill the priest, because holy fuck, priest! Cecil then tells Claudio he should probably leave, so he wanders the rest of Shiloh's 10 homeless for about a decade. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Jesse went into hiding after the loss of Mariah on Paris Earth, but begins a career as a boxer to earn a living and presumably as a rage outlet. Now known as the prize fighter Inferno, he finds one of his opponents is a surviving prize who claims to be awaiting the coming of the Crowing, who will emerge and save the keywork. Jesse decides to rebuild the rebellion once more.
Are you done?
I'm done, yeah.
Only fucking Marky Mark would read that and think, oh, movie.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot. It's a fucking lot. There's so fucking much crammed into just this album. How on earth do you make a movie out of that?
You don't. You make an HBO miniseries.
Yes, I agree. So, on top of that, as I mentioned, you later on have to then deal with the Grant Morrison-esque relationship between God and Claudio.
Right, yeah.
Because you find in Good Apollo 1 that, God, the God of this world, is actually a writer crafting a story in this world.
Is he a bald Scottish man?
No, he looks exactly like Claudio because Claudio is his self-insert character.
It's the same thing Grant Morrison does.
Yeah, basically. So he has gone through a breakup. He is exceedingly mad at his girlfriend because he thinks she cheated on him.
Real life or comic?
Comic. This is comic probably masking something that happened in real life.
Right.
I want to believe that this is Claudio dealing with the fact that he had some feelings that were really toxic and was just getting them the fuck out.
Yeah, this wouldn't be the worst way to do it.
Yeah. So a lot of that story is like the ever encroaching nature of God, the writer's will and worry and rage encroaching on the existential crisis and guilt and pain of Claudio the character. So just getting through all of that is a lot. I challenge any screenwriter to be able to do that effectively.
Okay, I'm going to compare this to two other specifically TV projects. One that has failed and one that has theoretically not.
Oh, okay.
The first is The Invisibles by Grant Morrison, in which
I still need to read that.
It is, and I know we just spent 40 minutes going through the plot of one album. It's dense as fuck.
Cool. I'll love it.
You'll also need the companion guide.
I mean, I'm not against doing that. That's basically how I got through Moby Dick whenever I first read it, and I fucking loved that.
The only part of Moby Dick I read was the part that they put above urinals sometimes about washing your hands.
That's a good part.
Yeah, I was like, this is pretty good. Actually, I read this novel. I haven't.
It's quite good, and it's real gay at parts. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but like...
Sounds like the best part to me.
Yeah, great. They're Ishmael like wakes up in a bed with Queequeg early on before they actually set sail, and there's this whole chapter about rendering whale fat that's just the most homoerotic thing I've ever read in literature.
See, before you add that second part, I'm like, I don't really want to read that chapter about rendering whale,
Whale
fat.
fat. Yeah.
But then
No,
you're like, it's
yeah.
a metaphor for gay stuff. And I'm like, sweet.
It's just the way it's written. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is strangely homoerotic. This is oddly hot.
Weird foreplay back
Yeah,
then.
it kind of is. Oh man, I'm really glad we had to bring that up today. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
But The Invisibles is vast and dense and takes... It was the inspiration for The Matrix, if that tells you anything.
That tells me some. Yeah.
Just the kind of like thoughts, themes behind it.
Sure.
So that never got made.
And the other one that might not be dead.
The other one that is not dead, I just don't have success yet, is Sandman. Which is,
Oh, right, because that's just about to come out.
Yeah. Which is also a comic book that is super dense
It
and
is
all over the
super
fucking
dense.
place.
Yeah, that's very true. I am... Like, I was so worried about that project when they first announced it, but at this point, I am super excited. Like, I'm pumped.
I refuse to look at anything until some major, like, mega nerd tells me it's good.
Fair.
So let me know.
Okay. I'll watch the first episodes and let you know. Who am I kidding? I'll probably binge the entire fucking series.
Yeah.
Just, so that was a lot to digest. So, and we're not quite done. So what do you say we take one more break and then we'll come back and we'll close things out.
You ever watch The Crucible?
Yeah.
Specifically the play, the movies, whatever, but
Actually, you know what? I've never actually seen the play performed.
so it's a metaphor for the Red Scare.
Okay.
And the trials, I forget what they're specifically called, but the trials were like different actors and people would be blacklisted from Hollywood. But he intentionally wrote the play to be tedious and long so that you could feel what it was like to go through the trials.
Oh, that's excellent. I actually
No,
love that.
it's like once I learned that, I'm like, I actually kind of like this play now.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what you just did to me was like make me sit through this like long, tedious explanation so that I knew how impossible it was to make it into a movie.
Now your homework after
fucking crucibled me.
I did kind of crucible you. Now your homework after we're done here is to listen to the album again and tell me if you actually picked up on any of it.
Let's we'll be back after break.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, so there are. I'm going to start with a content warning at this point because we are going to have to talk about sexual assault a little bit.
Got it.
Which brings me to the next reason that I feel like this would be a particularly hard thing to adapt, and it's just deeply troubling material that is present throughout a lot of the story. So first and foremost, as you were not prepared for, basically family annihilation right out of the gate, with the poisoning of two little kids and the bashing of a hammer into a young girl's head.
Yeah, a little true crimey.
A little true crimey for a minute there, yeah. Like you can almost imagine Henry Zabrowski reading about that.
Yeah,
and then as I mentioned, Josephine's attack, while the Jersey City Devils while they beat Patrick to a pulp, it's not directly shown, but they do rape Josephine. There is a sexual assault that takes place there. In the panels of the actual comic it's confirmed in the issue after the attack takes place through like a couple of quick flashback panels going alongside like what's happening in the present. And because there's an image of her pants being pulled down to reveal her underwear. Like none of it is drawn or presented as sexy or anything like that. Like it's all very harrowing and troubling and momentary. They get past it as quickly as they can.
Do you think it's an example of the freed your girlfriend trope? Meaning, does her death propel the motivation of another character?
Only insofar as the rest of the Kilgannon family's death propel the motivation of a character, because Claudio is largely out for revenge for the death of his entire family.
Gotcha.
Because he does eventually learn like what actually happened to his parents.
Okay.
He learns what happened to Matthew and Maria, the twins that were poisoned. Like he learns all of this.
Gotcha.
So I guess yes and no.
Yeah, if it was like just that and only that, and she was never spoken of again other than to show the pain that he was experiencing, then it might be. But since he's out for the entire revenge of his family,
yeah,
probably not.
Right. And I feel like I actually kind of have to address like some current events that have happened in relation to this, because I think at this point, if an adaptation were to take place, I think that Claudio and Chandra would be particularly mindful about this and firmly avoid including this detail.
Mm-hmm.
Largely because they've just been faced with this kind of thing. The band Dance Gavin Dance was supposed to be touring with Coheed Cambria in like literally a couple days here. Like they're supposed to start a summer. They were supposed to start a summer tour together, and their lead singer Tillian Pearson is facing several sexual misconduct charges, including allegations of rape from a fan.
This is Dance Gavin Dance.
This is Dance Gavin Dance. This is a completely different band that you don't actually need to know anything about.
Right.
With the exception that Coheed removed them from their tour.
Good for you guys.
Yeah. The correct choice, given their initial inclination was Tillian is going to get help, and we're going to continue to tour without him. It's like, no, you're not. No, all of you motherfuckers need help, because this isn't the only thing that band's dealing with. Their bassist also died earlier this year, so like they're all in a rough place. Yeah, so like they all need some time off to like heal.
Yeah.
Also, Tillian might need a lawyer and jail time.
Yeah,
but that's not for me to decide. There are some further concerning characters that are introduced later on, particularly in Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. There is the matter of Al the Killer. So he is, he ends up being the ride that Claudio and company end up getting to get to a particular area. Like they to go and try and confront Wilhelm Ryan for the first time. And during their travels aboard his ship, it's discovered that he's got a really uncomfortable relationship with his sniper rifle.
Yes, you did breeze over that earlier.
I did breeze over that earlier, and that's because I was going to bring it back and address that. I wasn't going to leave that hanging there. It's largely suggested that he is in love with his gun to like in a sex way. It's a sex thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe, no one's entirely sure. He also has a specific thing about killing white girls.
Would it? Just what nationality is he?
I mean, that's kind of hard to gauge. He's presented in the comic as darker skinned, I think. He's not white himself. Okay. Also visually, he's a little hard to like actually present, because he has like all these body modifications, most notably a giant gaping hole in his forehead that actually reveals brain.
Yeah, it's rough. It's a bad day.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
I mean, it's not as rough as the die white girls thing, but
I guess it feels weird to say, as a fan of true crime, as a person who finds weird comfort in true crime, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that like young white girls is
like
his demographic,
a fixation that he has. Yeah. It's deeply troubling. It's fucked up. I can definitely see like where that may have come from in some ways, in terms of true crime and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, if they're like hanging out and drinking with this guy, and he's like, "Hey, you want to meet our buddy Al? He's got some issues. We don't talk about it." Then I would be like, probably want to change that. But if they're like, he's a bad guy.
It's more that like they discover that Al's a bad guy, and he does then try to like double cross them and turn them over to Wilhelm Ryan whenever they get to his fortress or whatever. Mm-hmm. But he ends up having a change of heart, if I'm not mistaken, and ends up like giving them cover fire to escape
with his girlfriend gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird thing. I don't know how they would handle that in an actual adaptation. Like if they would go through with that, with like the characterization as current.
Right.
Yeah.
It's bumping up against some like Garth Ennis type story.
A little bit, right? Like it's
like if you told me this was like an episode of The Boys, I'd be like, yeah, of course it is.
I still need to watch that.
I've also not watched it yet, but I know Ennis.
Fair.
Ennis. We'll never know.
Whatever. Yeah. So just like with like that to consider, and like all of the God/the writer's obvious misogyny going on that we need to also has to be grappled with. It's
Right.
there are some problematic elements of the story as it currently exists that I think would need to be addressed in an adaptation at this point.
You'd have to have a skilled showrunner.
Yes, 100% yes. Okay, we're gonna step away from the actual story for a second, and we're gonna talk about Mark Wahlberg.
Love it.
Okay, so as I mentioned, this was optioned by Mark Wahlberg and Leverage Management in 2012. Between 2012 and 2019, Mark Wahlberg produced 12 films.
Oh, good. I was going to look them up.
Acted in 19 films, and made a shit ton of appearances as himself, including the 28 episodes of the Wahlburgers TV show about the burger restaurant that his family owns together.
Yeah.
Which, if you go to a Wahlburgers location, it's just playing on loop on TVs there.
My God, you mean imagine being a server there?
I can't. No,
It would be hell.
I would. Oh my God. And they show up at locations sometimes.
Great.
When I worked up near the one in Ross Township here,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone in like a 5-block radius of that shopping center knew that Mark or Donnie is going to be showing up to like, you know, do a meet and greet at Wahlburgers, and it would get packed and stupid. It's just like, what are you doing? It's just Mark Wahlberg.
Okay, all right.
Or it's just Donnie Wahlberg.
Right. Has Donnie been in anything? Besides his own fucking show?
Well, also New Kids on the Block. He was a member of New Kids on the Block back in the day.
Right.
You know, yeah, that boy band, the first boy band, arguably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just going to breeze past that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's all the mention that it requires.
Yeah.
So the thing that kills me a little bit is there are all these claims that everyone at Leverage was really interested and cared about the story of the Amory Wars. But in the time from the announcement of this film to the rights lapsing,
mm-hmm.
Mark Wahlberg never said a single substantive thing about this property or this story or this project in any interviews. The closest he came that I could find
mm-hmm.
was a Q&A with GQ that was posted to their YouTube channel in December of 2017, where he's doing one of those those fan submitted questions, or he's like pulling stuff off of Reddit and
AMA.
stuff. Yeah, kind of like an AMA, but like with a video component for GQ.
Gotcha.
And he has the text of the question right in front of him. Like, is there any update for the Amory Wars movie? Mm-hmm. And he reads it and he pronounces it Armory Wars. And while it's a very minor error.
That's fascinating, because I was actually going to bring that up, because I my dyslexic ass read it as the Armory War, which is a Iron Man storyline.
The Armor Wars, yeah. It's very much not that, but Mark Wahlberg, with the text of the question, with the correctly spelled text of the title in front of him, did mispronounce it. And again, a very minor error. Anybody could have done that, but when you're supposedly that into the story and interested in making it happen,
right.
and in that moment telling people there are no updates, I'll let you know when there are. It just kind of comes across as like, oh, this is,
you don't give a shit.
This is falling through. This is not actually going to happen. So that's essentially everything that's come up to now.
Okay.
Knowing all that, do you think that this stands any chance of ever seeing the light of day?
It's such a niche project that I don't know that there would be any it would be such an expensive project.
It would. Oh my God, yeah.
That it does have an established audience, but it doesn't have a massive audience.
Right. And that's an interesting point to bring up, because I tried looking up sales statistics on the actual books. Very hard to find. And the only things I was able to really find were month to month information on individual issues, and not even for all of them. And the most that I found for a single issue, I think, was around 6,900 in a month for the month of a release for a single issue.
And I know my comic books, and I had no idea this comic book existed before you brought it to my attention.
Sure. I mean, it started off as a project through Claudio's own comic company or comic imprint, which is Evil Inc. Comics.
Okay.
And it the current run of everything has been published by Boom Studios.
Okay. All right. That's a step up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still not like DC or Marvel or Image or Dark Horse or anything like that, but
Boom's still very respectable. It's
they're
quite Image, but it's close.
They're a known entity at least. Like people, like they're a name people would recognize.
They have a lot of what I refer to as like millennial intellectual property.
Okay,
like Buffy and Power Rangers.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think,
and the Amory Wars.
And the Amory Wars. So I would say no, but I would love for you to say. Actually,
I'm going to say possibly.
Okay.
I obviously can't say yes. I have no certainty of this getting adapted at any point ever. But in an interview with, I believe it was Spin Magazine regarding their new album, which is Vaxis Act 2, A Window for of a Waking Mind.
Right, of course it is.
Yeah. It's mentioned that pitches are currently being developed for a new adaptation attempt. And the fact that they're published through Boom Studios could potentially be a big aid in that, because Boom just recently announced a first look partnership with Netflix for adaptations of their properties.
Okay.
And that's more of the push that a lot of people are going for. Like you mentioned doing an HBO Max series. There are petitions active amongst the fans of Coheed to do a Netflix series for this. Now, given fan petitions aren't exactly the most successful things in the world.
No.
But it is nice to have like a tangible thing to show that interest.
You know what could work? Did you watch the League of Legends show that was on Netflix?
Arcane?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but I am interested in checking it out because I've heard that you don't actually need to know shit about the game.
Never played the game. I have no idea what the fuck it is.
I have negative interest in playing that game.
But I actually really enjoyed the show.
Yeah?
And there are... adult themes. The animation is cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the animation style.
The voice acting is really, really good.
Hell yes.
But if you could get the company, I want to say it's Frederator, but I'm not sure.
Frederator, really?
I could be wrong.
Huh.
But if you got that company working on this as an animated show, I mean, even the Castlevania show is a more mature
anime, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're boobies.
There are boobies.
And a wiener.
There's a ween?
I think there's in like the next last season, there's a ween.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Gotta watch me some Castlevania.
Enjoy. So yeah, I think if they went that route, it would work. I still think a live action would be the dumbest way to go about it.
There's not really a consensus at this point, I think, that I've seen among fans. Like, a lot of people are like, yeah, I want the live action thing to happen. And a lot of people are like, no, animation. That's the key. That's not what we should do. And I think I'm leaning animation on it just because then I think you have a bit more freedom to do more with less. You don't have to necessarily pay big name stars for like stunts and prosthetics and makeup and all the other shit they're going to have to go through and all the big time commitment of filming something of this scale.
Well, from the story you described, the world that needs built, go animated. Like you're not going to be able to afford, like you would have to have you'd have to have a Marvel established universe in order to get like the monies to make this.
Yeah.
I haven't read the comic books. I don't know how big it actually is as far as like action goes, but
pretty big. I mean, they're like, you're dealing with like space battles, you're dealing with people with psychic abilities, you're dealing with warring factions and armies.
Yeah, you need a
lot of hand-to-hand combat at various points. And of course the total annihilation of a system of stars.
Right, that could be expensive.
A little bit. But I am a little bit hopeful that this is going to eventually come to fruition, mostly because their new album has gotten so much critical and audience acclaim. Like, I've seen lifelong Coheed fans refer to this as the best record of theirs that they've heard in 15 years. For a band that hasn't had a gold record specifically since 2005.
Okay.
That's a huge shot in the arm, especially for something like Vaxis 2 does things that this band has never done before. Like the way they blend in much more, like a lot of like pop and R&B elements into the music to like flesh the soundscape out in ways that they've never been capable of.
Okay.
And also, Claudio managed to do some different things songwriting-wise that he hadn't done before because he has now a little bit of musical writing experience. In 2016, he got commissioned to write music. I think just music. I'm not entirely sure. For a new adaptation of a new musical adaptation of The Portrait of Dorian Gray.
It doesn't sound like the worst decision to have him write that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's just doing the music or if he's also doing the book. I kind of hope he's just doing the music, and they have somebody who's actually like a gay man or otherwise queer to do the book, just because adapting Oscar Wilde.
Yeah,
but that project never really came to fruition. So he has like an entire act of music that he's been sitting on, and he didn't use it specifically in this project. But especially when you get to the title track at the very end of the album, like the quality of that song is very musical, theatrical, like, is sweeping, and it's great. Like the last 3 songs of that record in particular are just like this sweeping prog rock epic of.
And that's his newest.
This is from the newest record, yeah. So like you have like a lot of like their like this mix of like this new pop influenced R&B fused like electronic tinge stuff that also has
all the genres of music, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's a bit of polka. There's
quick correction: the animation company that produced Arcane is, and it's French, so I might fuck this up.
Okay.
Fortiche.
Okay.
Yeah. So quick correction there.
All right, but yeah, that up to now is the Amory Wars and the state of things surrounding that. I'm hoping that right now the iron's hot and that somebody's looking to strike and actually make it happen. But until then, this is still kind of languishing in development hell.
All right, I have 2 after listening to you.
Yes.
For an hour and a half, talk about this.
Yeah.
2 questions. 1,
please.
Who's going to play Claudio?
Who's going to play Claudio? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if he casts himself, that's where it becomes
masturbatory. I'll be so mad. Because he's specifically said in interviews, like, yeah, if I could not have done that, I would. But it's too late now.
Do you know how old he was when he started writing the?
Oh man, because the comics came after, so it was it was just the music first, but.
Within the lyrics, does he refer to that character as Claudio? Okay.
Yeah, and specifically in the song Everything Evil, which is on the playlist that we had put together. DeRazzled presents Cambria and the Tijuana Brass. Yeah, in the song Everything Evil, you do get a reference to his name specifically being Claudio.
It feels like a very young writer thing to do.
Yes.
So if you were like, oh, he was like 20 when he did it, I'm like,
he was definitely like out of his teens, but 20, if not early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
So I'm not surprised he's like, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, like around the time, I think I was reading an interview with him from around the time Good Apollo 1 came out, and he was like, man, I really wish I hadn't done that, but here we are. I got to roll with it.
So, John Goodman then.
Oh my God. Not that he couldn't do it.
No, he can pretty much do anything.
You know what? No, John Goodman for Al the Killer.
Oh God. He plays a really good villain.
He does though. Okay, no, serious casting for Claudio. Damn it! If Oscar Isaac were like a younger actor.
How old is the character Claudio?
He's like a teenager at the beginning of the story, and then he ages up into like his mid-20s after the first album.
Okay. Knowing nothing about this story other than what you just told me.
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
You know that his name was like going around in my head, but I was like, man, I want someone less white. I just
yeah, no. That's tough because Hollywood doesn't
I know
give a whole lot of options there.
Yeah, because like not that Chalamet couldn't do it,
right?
I would love. Oh man,
it's like, oh, he's a youngish 20s actor who's like vaguely introverted. Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being what ends up happening there.
Great. More importantly,
yes,
who's Marky playing? You know, if he had produced this movie, he's gonna be in it.
He'd end up being Jesse. I just know it. because he doesn't die in the first movie,
Right, gonna be there for the sequel.
and he plays an important role as an iRobot.
Oh, the robot.
He's one of the robots, and because he's the one meant to carry forth the mission after Hohenberger's been killed off. And like monitor Coheed and Cambria, make sure they're okay, and he fucks up when they get captured, but he survives, and he gets to and plus,
how old is he in the comics?
That's hard to gauge. He's a robot.
Oh yeah, never mind.
He's an adult robot.
I wanted you to say like 15, and then we get like an old ass Marky Mark.
Oh my god,
that's like a 15-year-old robot.
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious.
He's got a Donnie in there somewhere.
Donnie, who's Donnie playing? Cecil. He's playing Cecil.
Great. I don't remember that character. Perfect.
No. Donnie's one of the Red Army soldiers that tries to burn down the house but gets murked by a priest.
That makes more sense. I was gonna say the murder bike, but
Donnie's 10 speed.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You'll enjoy this. In the song 10 Speed.
Yes.
It's hard to make out like a lot of the conversations happening, but there is like a direct dialogue between 10 Speed and the writer / God,
right?
Where he's like trying to convince him to kill off the representation of his ex, which if I'm interpreting it correctly is Ambelina, the Blue Angel lady whose wings were burned off.
Great.
He's trying to convince her to kill her off. And the writer responds back to him in the immediate, like, well, that's not your decision. And how does that work anyway? You're a bicycle.
Yeah, that's a good line.
It's pretty good. It's my favorite whenever you have a crowd of people just shouting it whenever they play it live.
God, that's gonna be great.
It's
like have those words vibrating through your chest. Wonderful. Anything else you want to address with the Amory Wars?
No, I think that covers everything. I mean, I've been, like I said, I've been a fan of this band for almost the entirety of the time that they've existed. This is the 20th. This year's the 20th anniversary of the Second Stage Turbine Blade.
Okay,
and then the release of their latest record, and I'm just thrilled to see where this band goes and see what ends up actually happening with this story, and if it does get adapted anywhere. So
if you also want to see this movie get made, go to your closest Wahlburger. Donnie will be there. Mark might be. Just be like, why didn't you do the movie, Mark?
If somebody could actually get like an answer out of him, that would be amazing.
Yeah, actually, we just want to know.
Yeah,
don't tell him to make it, because that probably wouldn't have turned out well.
Yeah, just like get him to actually explain, like, hey, what happened with this? Just that would be amazing. Just because he's never said anything substantive.
I like to pretend he bought it for Donnie.
Oh my god!
Like Donnie really wanted it, and he's like,
and then he got it and never played with it.
And then, yeah, he's like, I'm not going to renew the license, Donnie. You didn't play with it in the first place.
You expect me to just keep getting you movies, and you haven't used the last one.
Oh lordy. Fascinating. Development hell is fascinating. Usually fascinating.
Yes, I think this one's pretty fascinating. I'm excited to dig into more.
Yes,
because like we said, this is going to be an ongoing series in the second unit. This is just us hitting the ground running here now. I can't wait to learn more about what went wrong with so many other films,
which is oftentimes an issue. Even for movies that like Sandman, that's been said to have been a miniseries for like basically since it first came out.
There was supposed to be that Joseph Gordon-Levitt one for a while, and nothing came of that. I think there was a couple of attempts before that. Even
they wanted to do a movie, then they wanted to do a series, and then they just I don't know.
Yeah,
fascinating. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week with a real winner. I'm excited about it. Been doing a lot of research, more research than is necessary.
But I'm thrilled that we're going to finally get to cover it. We talked about it a little bit last season, and now we're finally going to be jumping in.
Yeah, we're going to do Mommy Dearest, which is a movie based on the relationship between Joan Crawford and her adopted daughter. And it was not a good one. And the movie is known for being a little cheesy.
Yes.
Melodramatic.
Melodramatic is a better word.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm super pumped to get into that. I hope you all are excited to hear that one. In the meantime, please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can do so on Good Pods, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Podchaser. Please do that so people have an easier time finding us and discovering the show and sharing it with their friends. Please follow us on social media, on Twitter at DeRazzledPod, on Facebook at DeRazzled Podcast, on Instagram at DeRazzled_podcast, and TikTok at Dullboy_Jack.
And if you're having problems with foreplay in the bedroom, don't knock the discussion of rendering whalebblubber.
No. You'd be amazed how effective it can be.
Yeah,
don't knock it until you've tried it.
The underpants just fly off.
Fly right off. It's astounding. Just slip and slide. Right?
That's just like the rendered whale. All right, we'll see you next time, where we'll be sure to
razzle-dazzle ya.